Howdy y'all, I am Ice Gold, and over the course of the last few weeks, you've probably heard me mention that I'm quitting PvP because of the spring update. I stocked up on PvP content in the last few days before the update, which is why you've still been seeing it up to this point, but the Ice video on Wednesday was the last one that I recorded. And the moment I looked over those new Arc 2 spell elements with Frenzy and Pluto on stream about a month back, I knew that I was going to be quitting PvP. And sure, you know, last meta was pretty bad, but it pales in comparison to this one. There's so much more that's broken. You know, you see people doing PvE strats where they just stack a bunch of buffs and just one-shot you on more schools than you used to. Jading is back in full force, you know the vibes. I guess the question some of y'all might have is, are you quitting PvP? And the answer is, the videos get too many views. I'm definitely quitting max level. That is definitely something that I'm doing. I am not going to be playing max level anymore. And it's really a shame because there were a few strats that I wanted to try out with the update, specifically on like fire and life and all that, but oh well. I am going to try out some other level brackets though. I did always want to try out Grand and Legend. There's another content creator by the name of Panda Mafia. I've been, doing my research. I've been watching a couple of his videos just to try and see if I can really get into it, so stay tuned for some of that. And I will be starting that with Exalted Storm on Monday, so I'm going to try out some cool combos with that. So there's bad metas, and then there's unplayable metas. My main school of Ice has gotten better at long last, and the other elemental schools have also gotten better at long last, and balance has taken a sufficient tumble in the hierarchy with the Hydra rework. Death and Myth are still at large, but at least the main unplayable matchup I had to deal with is out of the picture. Because, Hydra just made it impossible for an Ice to win. So, if the schools are way more balanced, why am I quitting? Didn't I enjoy that type of balance that we saw back in 2020 when the game was at its most fun? Well, dear viewer, you'd be right. I did enjoy the days when every school could beat every school, but even with the recent buffs to Fire, Ice, and Storm, we're still a far cry from the balance the devs think they've struck. Fire can now easily send Scions with just about any of their overtimes that they had previously, which is good. That's what Fire is all about. Ice is now much better at outlasting our opponents, which is what we were always meant to do. And Storm now has an easier time surprising you with their massive damage spells. All really great changes, but when Death still has their drain, stats, and shads, and when Myth can easily get around any sort of damage mitigation tactic, turning games into, quote-unquote, who can steamroll who first, the needle on a lot of these matchups has barely moved. Ice versus Myth, for example, used to be a safe Myth victory, with the Myth winning about 40 more games out of 100 than the Ice would. That has now moved to the Myth only winning about 30 more games than the Ice would. Yay, major improvements! Not to mention the new tools Ice got that bring down that ratio in the first place are Beast Moon spells. And, need I remind y'all that there is still no other way to get these spell elements. They still have not mentioned anything about tournaments in a while. And if you're like me, and you really dislike Beast Moon, hate it with a passion, you're not going to think it's worth your time. That then extends to PvP. If I have to do Beast Moon to even be competitive at all in PvP, and I like Beast Moon even less than PvP, then naturally I'm going to avoid doing PvP. And this just raises the barrier to entry even higher, and we've gotten to a level where I'm not going to get into it. I'm just going to refuse. There's also the issue with Jading being back in full force, and I called it the moment I saw that rebirth path. Jading was fully back, and a good Jade will not lose a match ever. Bad Jades, on the other hand, make you really have to set your deck differently anyway to beat them, because if you get them below half health, for example, they'll just end a rebirth and undo all your progress, like with Sanctuary or whatever. And so it's like you gotta make sure you always have bubble, that type of thing, which is easier said than done. And it could be the worst rebirth ever, but it would still heal them for around, 5,000 health, and if you don't have the counter ready, you're gonna be sitting there a while longer. It's hard to try to go for combos against them because you always need to have the pips to Triton, and the blades that you get from Triton are honestly good enough to where you can counter a heal and then go for a hit, but you better hope you can combo the person to death before they giga heal again. That alone puts life back in the top 3 schools, and just for reference, with balance being out, The whole big three thing, where there's three super oppressive meta schools and nobody else can really compete, is still very much a thing. The margins aren't as huge as they were prior to this, but, you know, it's like I was saying with Ice versus Myth. It's like a Myth plus 40 game now shrinks down to Myth plus 30, so a Myth still won't lose that matchup. Let's also not forget the stat burden with this. Because of how strong Rebirth really is, as well as healing just in general, if you're not Storm or Death, you need to run a lot of heal counters in your deck, which requires accuracy to that school. Triton is really good at countering heals due to the blades it gives, but you need to run a bunch of Storm accuracy and maybe even Sharp Shot on your pet, depending on the setup, in order to not fizzle. This, then, consequently, makes the best setup to run for non-storms or deaths require a ton of Storm accuracy, and a hat that gives a power pin is, you know, leagues better than anything else for that. The problem is, the best hats that give a power pin come from the Wallaru Wastelanders back, and yeah, a wise man once said that the best PvP metas happen when life is at the bottom of the barrel, and I honestly just could not agree more. What's really unfortunate about all this is that I'm not burnt out of making Wiz content at all. I still love making content for y'all, but the main source of content on the channel, being, you know, max level PvP, is just no longer enjoyable to me. Like I said before, at the start of the video, I am going to try out different level brackets and still put out PvP content, but it's not going to be max level, so I guess we'll see how they end up performing. I mean, my Exalt Balance videos always underperform the max level stuff, so if I don't enjoy lower level PvP and it's not getting enough interest, then I'm not really sure where I would take this channel. I've been uploading daily since I came back in mid-September, and I'm still so down to keep doing that, but a common problem WizTubers face is that there's just not enough endgame content that's appealing to them. I've already touched on Beast Moon. I'm not huge into housing and decorating houses, and I doubt much of my audience is either. I'm not into monstrology. I'm not into decathlon. You get the picture. I could start doing solos like Alexander Lionheart would always do, but that's sort of what I've been doing with the budget walkthrough, and it's not like there's been a lot of newer content that people have really tried to solo. Challenge mode becoming a thing for a bunch of the bosses I was thinking of just makes it super iffy, because all the ban cards and that nonsense just turns me off to the whole thing, and it's not like challenge modes were meant to be soloed. Anyway, standard mode for the same fights became super Mickey Mouse a while back as well. I mean, think about like Medulla and the Storm Titan, so I guess if I lose my niche, I'm not really sure where to turn in this game. I came back to Wiz and then this YouTube channel for the sole purpose of bringing back what I did 4 years ago. Uploading PvP content for the community to watch, with some non-PvP stuff sprinkled throughout. And up until now, I've done exactly that. And who knows, maybe I'll try some new stuff in Max PvP at some point, but for now, the devs have really got to regulate all of the nonsense that's been going on. I shouldn't be afraid to queue, because I'll get some guy who just adapts into Rebirth, into Rebirth, into Surge, into Rebirth, into Rebirth the moment I get him with a kill range, or someone who spams so many Ifrit weaknesses with Vampire that I can't even play the game, etc., etc., but that's the meta we really find ourselves in today. So, thank y'all for watching. I've been Ice Cold. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave like 50 comments for the algorithm. I'm gonna try and see if I can still like enjoy PvP in this meta, but we'll see how that goes. My Discord is down in the description if you want to chat with me some more, and I will see y'all later.